Talk to them about updating it. There's a lot of shine on the cheeks. But anyway.
It'll only take a year or two to get updated.
I know, right? Right. It takes a while to update the website. But thank you so much for having us here this morning. As Gary mentioned, I'm here with Ray Hessinger from our team. And I probably should start with the introduction for myself. I am Janet Ho. I am with the New York State Department of Transportation. I am the Assistant Commissioner there for Finance and Integrated Modal Services. And we're really pleased to be here this morning and talk to you about what we have going on with respect to rail this year, just some of the things. Ray will give some updates, and most importantly, I think, to kind of hear from you. I'll probably be here through lunch, so if you get the opportunity, come say hi. Would love to meet some of you, hear what you have going on, hear your concerns. And I think that's really important. It's why we come to these events, why we want to interact with all of you, is to hear your opinions, hear what you think and you have going on, and just so that we can be able to incorporate that into some of the things that we have going on in the department. So I don't want to take too much time. Ray has, well, Ray and I work together, mostly Ray has all the information. A good presentation to put together, some information to get out to you today. I'll steal a little bit of thunder from him on parts of the presentation. I think probably some of you know that there is a lot of federal discretionary funding out there for rail investment. Actually, there's a notice of funding opportunity out now. We are planning to pursue those opportunities. Look forward to reaching out, coordinating with Gary, Steve, and your board to work to build letters of support and work with everyone so that we can grow out passenger rail service here in New York State. So again, really, really lovely to be here with you all. I hope you take the time to just come by, say hi to me, so I can hear what you have to say. And thanks for coming to Schenectady this morning. And we were joking a little earlier. Made it in right before the eclipse, so drive safe on the way back, because it's supposed to be, if you are in the areas where you are within the path of totality. I hear that there are a lot of people headed to different areas of the state so that they can view this once in a lifetime event. So be safe on the roads, and we'll talk to you all. It's exciting times.
Thanks, Janet. And for those of you who don't understand bureaucracy, integrated modal services is rail, aviation, public transit, and our local government programs. So she's got a lot of stuff on her list.
And the first one was budget. We were going to try.
I figured they understood that part.
And we were going to try to provide an update on that today, but we're not quite done. So we were like, oh, we're going to have to take out that side.
Yeah, no, I figured they understood the finance part. It's the other one. So I'll walk around. I don't need to stand behind. I'm going to start with.
You can take the mic off there, right, if you want to walk around.
Let's figure out how this works. We're putting it at the computer.
No, it's not. We'll do it manually.
Need to turn it on. Yes. That works. It's supposed to work. Or at least it's got lights.
Okay.
Want me to help push the button? I can do that.
Now we're going to convert to a. Hang on.
No, that wasn't my slide. She started somebody else's.
And, of course, when you want it to work, it's also working correctly.
Try to turn it off and turn it on. Whoop, whoop.
The agenda just showed.
Ah. All right. Because it's also reminded me what I'm going to talk about. Okay, we got the agenda. So what are we going to talk about? We're going to talk about how our routes did last year. And we'll talk a little bit about some of the capital projects impacting passenger rail that we have ongoing. We'll talk a little bit about federal funding that's on the table for this year. Give you a brief update as far as I've been updated on the arrows. Give you an update. And I didn't bring it, we'll put it out. Oh, you got it on here?
Yeah, sorry if you're
There we
gonna
go.
scroll.
Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about how our onboard inspection program is going. I'm going to do a little bit inside baseball and tell you about an organization. I don't know how much you guys know about. It's the State Amtrak Intercity Passenger Rail Committee, what it is and what it does. Going to talk a little bit about our passenger freight rail assistance program. I've got some miscellaneous facts and things to talk about, and then we'll open it up for questions. All right,
See if you can.
see if I can.
That should work.
Hey! All right, so our ridership over the last, how far back was back to 2010. So we are essentially fully recovered from COVID in terms of ridership in the corridor. We set a record of over 1.8 million riders last year. We're currently on pace to be over 2 million between our current routes. With ridership up, revenue's doing pretty good too. So we had, again, record year of revenue last year from ticket sales, and we're doing well again this year. And that ticket revenue helps offset the subsidy. It's how much you spend, how much you take in pays the difference. It's kind of the way the world works in Amtrak land. So we try and keep the revenue up as best we can. On-time performance. Everybody cares about on-time performance. And Amtrak will put out a monthly on-time performance. But really, every day you have a different on-time performance. And so we like to track it at a little more granular level. And so you can see over the course of time, well, there's some months we do pretty good, and there's some months we do pretty bad. And actually, we're doing pretty good. So last summer was that last dip. And summer's tough. CSX is out working on the right of way, and Metro North is out working on the right of way. And so you get delays from those. And so, but it's good to see that ridership has rebounded. And this is all our routes combined. But each route kind of has its own story. these graphs are on the same scale as I scroll through them. So if we look at the New York to Albany trains, they do really well. The whole line shifted up. And we're in the 90 to 95% OTP for the trains that run between New York and Albany. Maple Leaf, there's a lot more stuff going on with the Maple Leaf. Doesn't perform as well, but it's a much longer trip. Multiple host railroads. But you know, right now CSX is running better than 80% on-time performance, and we take that as a win. We think CSX right now is good. Again, summertime, big deal. But right now they're running really, really well. The Adirondack obviously is a big hole. But it doesn't run at all.
It's never late.
But right, never on time either. And so it's running about 75% OTP right now, which historically is not bad for the Adirondack. And then the Ethan Allen on the left there, that was that was only suspended for a short amount of time at the beginning of COVID. So you see the impact of that on the left-hand side of the graph. And then they had some startup troubles, I would say, in terms of when they expanded to Burlington. You know, the schedule had a little tight here and a little too much fluff there, and so it took a while to get those things worked out. But as you can see on the right-hand side, it's running pretty good right now. Bicycle usage. We start on the left with the first use of bicycle, or the first opportunity to take your bikes on board, and then you can see this past summer on the right-hand side with the spike. You know, I don't think the shape of the graph should surprise anybody. People take their bikes in the summer and they don't take their bikes in the winter. I don't know if someone's going to get a PhD researching that.
Jeff Oswald.
Yeah, he's those couple of little ones in the chat. So, you know, it's doing really well, you know, in terms of its usage, in terms of the revenue that we're generating from it, has at this point really paid off what the cost of the bike racks were. So within 3 summers, we've paid for that capital expense. So, you know, really at this point, the only way to get more bikes is to add more cars, which is an option, or move south. Capital projects, Livingston Avenue Bridge. DOT has selected a contractor, and that contract is working its way through the approval process. It's a design-build contract, so they're responsible for designing the bridge and getting it built. The bridge will be to the south of the existing structure. I think this has been kicking around for a little while without a whole lot of movement. It has a shared use path, bikes and peds, and as you guys are probably aware, we were unsuccessful in obtaining federal funding for the project last year, but we continue to move ahead, and we will be applying for federal funding again in 2024 to help pay for that very large bridge. Rhine Cliff Station, this one's kind of been quiet, but there's been a lot of work going on in the background on this. You actually have 2 different projects here. Amtrak had their own internal project to address ADA issues within the building itself. The building's not ADA compliant.
Which stations?
Rhine Cliff.
Oh, Rhine Cliff.
Yep. And then DOT was awarded a grant to change the platforms, the high-level platforms, redo the overhead bridge and the elevators. Yeah, that's probably a good idea. So we were working on our part and Amtrak was working on their part, and FRA finally stepped in and said, no, this is gonna be one project. And for their purposes, funding and environmental clearance, they've combined them into one. The project it also includes a new interlocking a new CP88 south of the station, which will help, particularly during construction, with getting trains in and out of the station, but over the long term, additional opportunities to cross over from one track to the other is going to reduce opportunities for the weather. Federal discretionary grants. So I think Jen just noted that FRA just issued a notice of funding opportunity under the Chrissy program. And so that one's on the street. There's a couple more out there coming up soon. Let's see, I gotta get over on this side. So, yeah, next one down is the crossing elimination program. So that one is, notice of opportunity comes out end of May. The Fed State Partnership Northeast Corridor grants, that NOFO is expected to drop at the end of this month. The Fed State National program is all the way out at the end of September when they open up applications. So those won't even be awarded until almost a year from now. They won't be announced. There's still all the paperwork that has to be done. So yeah, they won't even be announced for another year. And then the R&E. Restoration and enhancement. So yeah, those are in there. So this is all funded from the infrastructure law. There's more money than we've ever seen out there, but it is all extremely competitive, as we found out last year where DOT didn't get anything. Corridor ID program. Lots of interest in the Corridor ID program. DOT was awarded 2 grants last year under the Corridor ID program. The first being the Empire Corridor, running from New York City to Niagara Falls. The second being the Adirondack Corridor, running from New York City to Montreal. Those grants were just obligated. We just got FRA's authorization to start work. And so we're just getting underway. I think the important thing to understand about this first phase, because the corridor program comes in, well, that'll be my next slide. So before I go there, I want to finish what it says here. In addition, there were other corridor ID grants that were awarded that impact New York, but they're not grants to us. So the Massachusetts DOT got a corridor ID grant for Boston to Albany service. So we will, Mass DOT is going to have the lead on that study, but we will coordinate with them, for the very last western piece of that for the Massachusetts border over to Albany. V-Trans, they're looking at their Ethan Allen corridor, but they want to basically add a second round trip that runs via Bennington. So go Albany, Schenectady, Mechanicsville, Bennington, and then north to Manchester and Rutland, and then up to Burlington. So again, there's the Albany through Mechanicsville and over to the state line pieces in New York, and obviously the connection down in New York City. So we'll be coordinating with the V-Trans, but they're driving the boat on that one. And then Amtrak got a corridor ID program award to look at extension of a Northeast Corridor train from Penn Station to Ronkonkoma out on Long Island. So So you basically have a one-seat ride from Concoma to Washington DC. And so Amtrak has the lead on that. That would be if that was ever to come to fruition, it would be another state-supported service. So we are going to be in that up to our necks. We'll get the bill, whatever it comes to be. But Amtrak, for the purposes of the study, is going to have the lead. And like I said, we just obligated the funds. And this is a bit of a chart. So the Corridor ID program is set up into 3 steps. And everybody who got an award is in step 1. And that's really planning to plan. All right? Corridor ID is a planning effort. And step 1 is to plan the work. So at this stage, really all we have to do is identify, what work are we going to do, or either internally or through a consultant. What's it going to cost, and how long is it going to take us? That's step 1. That's all we do. We come up with a scope of work. We're going to study this. We're going to do ridership studies. We're going to do market analysis. We'll do some train simulations. Put a whole list together of the things that we're going to do. We figure out how much it's going to cost us, and we tell FRA when that's going to be done. And that's all we can do with the $500,000 that we have. Okay. At the end of that, you move into step 2, where you actually do all the studies that you said you're going to do. It goes from 100% federal funding to 90-10. So we have to start paying for it when we get to the or 10% when we get to the study part. And then step 3, the final outcome of step 2 is a service development plan. Now we just did a service development plan for the Tier 1 EIS. So we have one for the Empire Corridor, but if you look at it, it was last touched in 2017. So lots of things have changed. You wouldn't think, but when you read it, lots of things have changed since 2017. The data that we're looking at is from 2010 and 12. And so all the background data needs to get updated, and a whole bunch of assumptions. It doesn't know anything about the existing service development plan, knows nothing about the aero train sets, and that changes the number of seats available and a whole bunch of other things. So the Empire Corridor Service Development Plan will need to get updated and have an updated list of projects. I don't expect it's going to be a whole lot different than the list that's in there today. We may package it a little different. The Adirondack Corridor, blank sheet of paper. The last time we looked at the Adirondack Corridor was a study back in 2004 that considered 150-mile-an-hour alignments between Albany and Montreal. I'm not going to advocate that because we're not building a new railroad to the Adirondacks. It's just not going to happen. So that's going to be more of a incremental improvements on the existing alignment type of effort. And we'll run those in parallel. And again, I'll have to come up with a service development plan and then identify projects and then move into the PE and NEPA phase on whatever projects come out of that. The aero trains, lots of excitement about the aero trains. We have been very active with Amtrak in terms of participation. I've sat in on from review of the RFIs, was it 4 years ago now, through vendor procurement, final design reviews. I was invited to go see some of the mock-ups. I wasn't able to make it. But ultimately, we're in production. Siemens is in production. They've got 33 coaches in production, 2 locomotives in production. You can see the first car. There's not any seats in it. I did in the picture we taken, but it doesn't happen. All the car shells for the first train set are complete. And most importantly, it's on schedule. And so we're very excited. For a little disappointed we're last in line, so we're not gonna see these until 29, 30, 31. But we're very excited for this new equipment, both in terms of the reliability we're gonna get from new locomotives, to all the amenities in the passenger compartments that are gonna be much nicer than the intakes in driving today. Our onboard inspection program, for 2023, we inspected 236 trains. I got one guy, so that's actually, I'm out there every day. So not a bad number. We rate everything on a score of 1 to 100. Our average score is a 90. When we see recurring issues, we obviously bring them to Amtrak's attention. Within the last year, we've also put together an evaluation program for stations. So either if Josh is laying over someplace, he'll go in the station and he'll do an inspection of the station. Platform's clean, and there's the guy behind the counter there, stuff like that. And then also, I think kind of exciting, Virginia is looking to stand up same type of program, and they hired their inspector and sent him up to New York to ride along with Josh for, I think he did 2 days, to learn how what we do and how we do it. And so, it's just another example of the cooperation between the states that support Amtrak service that exists across the country. State Amtrak Interstate Passenger Rail Committee. Who's heard of this? Maybe a quarter of people in the room, maybe a little less. Okay, so the Passenger Rail Investment Act back in 2008 basically said states, you have to pay for all the routes of less than 750 miles, and you have to come to an agreement with Amtrak on a methodology for how you're going to make those payments that is applicable to everybody. So we did that. And ultimately the Surface Transportation Board approved that. Well, 2-3 years later, we said, well, we got to make a, we've been living with it now, we got to make a little change. Well, nobody had any authority to change it. So we got something written into the next transportation bill to set up this committee, and Congress gave this committee authorization to make the Section 209 policy a living document that could be amended by the states Amtrak and the FRA. The membership consists of the Federal Railroad Administration, Amtrak, and 20 agencies from 17 states. As many of you know, California has all their little JPAs, so they get multiple seats at the table. And over the ensuing 10+ years that this organization has been in existence, it's evolved beyond just simple number crunching to really a collaborative body between the FRA and Amtrak and the various states. So we now have a commercial performance working group where the states collaborate on fares, sales, advertising, marketing, and we work with Amtrak on both at a local and national level in terms of, you've got to keep the cost down, but there's the drive the revenue up side of the equation, and that's what the performance working group does. The cost sharing working group, you want to get into the minutia of Amtrak's general ledger, that's the place to go. But ultimately, that group is responsible for, the original mission, which is setting the rates that the states pay. The last piece I want to talk about is the equipment working group. So Amtrak, maintains their locomotives equipment on a regular basis. The states have a role in setting up the work plan and budget for Amtrak's mechanical forces, for rehab of every piece of rolling stock that's out there, and all the locomotives that are out there. And then there's kind of a subgroup for the arrows, for not everybody's getting the arrows, so not everybody sits on that. It's kind of exciting work. I mean, it really is. I have probably at least one meeting a week, if not two, with one of these groups or working groups. So it's an important part of what we do, both locally managing our service, but also collaborating at the national level with Amtrak and other states. I usually don't talk about our freight program, but we just made an announcement, or the governor just made an announcement, of $111 million of awards under our passenger and freight rail assistance program, and a number of those awards went to tourist railroads. So I thought I'd highlight that here. Adirondack Railroad got 3 grants of just over about $3 million. Some track work in Thindara to help them move stuff around in there, complete their shop in Utica, and do some work on their coaches. Catskill Mountain Railroad got 3 projects, one for a new terminal at their west end where they interface with the Ashokan Trail, some work to reduce emissions from the locomotives that they operate, and the last one to install an engine house at the east end. Delaware and Ulster Railroad got money for a grade crossing, and the Rochester and Tennessee Valley Railroad Museum got a little bit of money to fix up their track. So that was kind of exciting. From that perspective, we usually don't give out that amount of money to they usually get a little something, but this was some pretty significant investment in the tourist railroad industry. Last, miscellaneous. We're back to full service. Yay! So the 12th round trip was restored about a month ago. So we're back to a full 12 round trips from the New York to Albany market, and all the longer distance trains are running. The Adirondack summer schedule. My last conversation with Amtrak is they are having productive conversations with CN with the intent, with the obviously the objective of not having to shut down again this summer because of heat orders. Unfortunately, I can't say I've seen a piece of paper with 2 signatures on it. So things are still in flux, but the last report I got was very positive. Line 2 rehabilitation. This is a major capital project for Amtrak coming up later this year. There are 4 tunnels between Penn Station and the East Side Yard. They're going to be taking one of them out of service for the better part of a year for full rehabilitation. It all got flooded during Sandy. That's been 12 years ago now. And so it's gotten to the point where Amtrak needs to make some significant investments in the Line 2 tunnel. So that's a 25% reduction in capacity on the Northeast Corridor. That's going to impact Amtrak, Metro North Railroad, and New Jersey Transit. Every train that comes into Penn Station goes to Sunnyside. Well, now you've got 25% less capacity to get there. There will be significant impacts to Empire service. Those are still under analysis, so that I don't have any details I can share on that right now. But it's coming late summer, early fall is the latest schedule I've heard. So when we have information we can share on what that means for Empire service, we will certainly share that with you. Adirondack Service and Customs Inspection, I think everyone, we talked about it last year. US Customs is building a new facility right at the border in Rouse's Point. It's their intention to move the customs inspection from where it occurs now at the Rouse's Point station to this new facility, which is literally right on the US-Canadian border. Everybody will be getting out of the train with their luggage and going into the buildings. Not my decision on that, but that's what Customs said is going to happen. And I think this organization made some very important comments very early in the process in terms of the distance that people were going to be required to walk from the platform to the new building, and making sure that they, this is a winter at the Canadian border, and so windscreens and covered walkway to at least try and reduce the impact of the elements on the folks who are getting screened. Those were very important comments that came out of this organization. So kudos to you for getting that. That does not mean we've lost sight of pre-clearance facility in Montreal. Just means it's not something that US Customs is focusing on. So MTQ has had a consultant working to update the study we did in 2014, which basically is an architectural analysis of the building. How much room is there? What do we need in terms of floor space and program areas for US and Canadian Customs that both operate out of that same facility. The last time I spoke to Serge up in Canada, they were expecting a report by the end of April. So we are right on the cusp of them finishing that first phase. And from there we start looking about, okay, well, we can move into more detailed design. We can start to look at, okay, what are the real estate impacts within the building? I know a couple of the alternatives. There's a pharmacy directly upstairs that we basically have to kick out of their space to provide vertical circulation. I'm sure that's not going to be cheap. So anyway, that study is continuing to move forward and remains one of our priorities. At least from my opinion, pre-clearance in Montreal really unlocks the potential of the Adirondack. Cuts an hour out of the schedule each way. Just like an airline, you go to the station, you clear customs, and then you get on the train. You arrive at the station, you clear customs, and then you go through. And the customs clearance never takes the amount of time because that's allowed for it in the schedule today. So either they finish early and everyone sits around twiddling their thumbs because the train's waiting on time, so it's not early later down the line, or it takes longer than you anticipated and the train's late for the rest of the way. All of that goes away with a pre-clearance facility in Montreal. Food service. You guys have never mentioned that, right?
Never thought of it, right? It's a brand new idea. It's just a small.
Yeah, I'm going to point a finger and just say Amtrak has been very slow in responding to our request for them to update the forecast. I think most of you know that we were this close to making this happen back in the late winter of 2020 when the world shut down. And so yeah, no, I've been bugging my contract manager for quite some time that he's late on this. So I still don't have it, but I keep bugging. And then I think many of you may have seen the Surface Transportation Board was directed to set up a passenger rail advisory committee. They now have some passenger rail authority. They have some ongoing investigations with the Sunset Limited and a couple other locations. They got involved in the dispute between the Amtrak, CSX, and Norfolk Southern on the Gulf Coast service. So they were required to set up a passenger rail advisory committee. They announced it, its formation in November, and called for nominations for membership, and just in the last week announced the 18 voting members of the committee. There's somebody from New York, but there are a number of people that I know through the Sapercy Committee that I know will do an outstanding job, at least expressing the state-funded point of view when they finally meet. Yeah, I haven't seen anything about first meetings or anything. And that's it. I know I've covered everything, so there are any questions.
What is really wrong with the tracks north of Rouse's Point on the way to Montreal? Is it a manufactured problem, or why are those tracks more sensitive than south of Rouse's Point?
What I have been told, and this is only what I have been told, is there are no rail anchors installed in that track. And so when it gets hot, the rail anchors keep the rail from running longitudinally and keep the track from buckling because of the expansion of the rail. And so the issue is CN is worried about a track buckling event that's going to derail the train. And so, you know, the conversations with Amtrak and CN are about getting that fixed. As of the last conversation, CN has claimed they can fix it before it gets hot. Because what's the point of doing it in September after we've already gone through the summer? So that's, you know, I've never inspected it. You know, that's probably about fifth-hand information. But certainly it's the heat and the track buckling that's the issue.
But south of Rouse's Point, we have the buckles correct. Is that right?
Well,
It's two different hosts wherever.
Different railroad. You're on CN in Canada, you're on Canadian Pacific
Oh, okay.
in the US.
Okay. Also two different track inspection standards
Yep.
between the two countries.
Yeah.
And how much would work probably down it wasn't before.
I have a question more for Janet. This organization has studied all these federal programs, but could you let us know what state programs exist for funding state money for rail transportation programs? And to the extent inadequate, what should we be advocating for?
I think when you said state, and I missed what your word.
What state programs do you have for passenger rail?
The biggest one actually is, right, we do fund the state supported service, and that is in our budget.
Is that just annual budget or
That's-
a specific program?
That's the operational piece of it.
There's a specific
It's a
appropriation.
specific appropriation for it, and we fund it in the budget every year, which is great, because I know that there are some other states in the US that don't have such a routine. It's like a fight every year with their legislators, just to get the operating assistance, essentially, that we use to help pay for the state supported services with the Amtrak. In terms of capital, I mean, that's really kind of where we do look with the bigger dollars on the federal side, and we do have some state appropriations.
Well, yeah, so the
Yeah.
passenger and freight rail assistance program,
Yeah.
some of that money, because it comes out of two different pots, some of that money can be spent on inner-city passenger, but it's actually about less than a quarter of it. And the way that money works is actually Amtrak would have to apply, and they historically do not. Tourist railroads have figured it out, they applied, but Amtrak hasn't. And then, just basically out of our general New York Works program, we're able to, there's flexibility to spend that money on highways and on rail. We know where most of it goes. But in terms of providing match for a federal grant, we certainly can tap into those resources. We're not gonna turn away $100 million of federal money because we can't come up with 10.
And I think,
So just one more question, and then I have a final question, so.
Okay. So, yeah.
I just have two questions. First off, are there opportunities, just because we're going to last the arrows, could there be opportunities to improve the interoperability? Let's say if we have to detour trains into Grand Central because, let's say, we can't run trains in Penn Station, for instance, later this year for Line 2 closure. That's been on my mind. And speaking of that, is that even in the realm of possibility? And the second one is, would it be worthwhile to restore the second platform at Rhinecliff? And last one, it's glad to see an administration not attacking the tourist railroads, but actually working with them, seeing the last administration was very critical of the tourist railroads.
I'll just acknowledge your last comment. Service in the Grand Central. So, right now we have the dual mode locomotives that run off third rail. But the third rail systems in Penn Station and the third rail system in Grand Central are not the same. One of them, the shoe rides under the rail, the other, the shoe rides on top of the rail. You can thank the New York Central and the Pennsylvania for making sure they didn't choose the same system. And so you can change the shoe, all right, and we have done it. We can change the shoe on the current dual mode so you can run into Grand Central, but it's not you can't make the change while you're at Rhinecliff on the way down. And so it takes advanced planning to get all of the equipment cycled through and do that. And so back in November, where we had the overhead issue down on the west side line, that was certainly one of the solutions that was put forward. They wanted to run over to Grand Central, and we said, well, by the time we did all the work to get all the shoes changed over, they're going to have it fixed. So it doesn't make any sense to do that. The new arrows actually don't use third rail; they're battery, and so they're really able to run both in and out of Penn Central and Penn Station and Grand Central.
Okay, just one last question I have, since I see about one more.
No, I just wanted to make a comment, and I hope, and again, I apologize to my former colleagues here. One of the things that I would recommend too for this group, we're talking about transportation funds. There's a whole universe now of sustainability funds that are out there, including the Environmental Bond Act. One of the things that tends to wash out are rail lines. Culverts and bridges and everything will be eligible under some of those fund sources, as well at the federal level. So you may want to broaden your horizon beyond just DOT and look at some of those other opportunities out there.
Okay, thanks, Ron. Just one final question. I know there's about 5 or 6 faces, and this is probably the most common email that I get regarding the schedule being back how it was. It's not totally back, because on Sunday there's actually one less departure because the train 280 is in place of what used to be a separate train from Albany to New York, and there's no train 288 from Niagara Falls back in. So there's actually one less train on Sundays because of lack of 288. And many people here that go away for the weekend or want to go back to Albany after being in Buffalo, Rochester, the
late departure on Sunday.
Yes, because now the last train leaves Niagara Falls at like 11:50, and it doesn't leaves Buffalo like 12:30, and there's nothing in the afternoon on Sundays. So.
Yep.
That's just a comment there.
I will acknowledge.
Okay, but yeah, that's the most common email that I get from a number of people that's in this room now, as far as I go. So, just one other thing, and your comments were New York State with the Service Transportation Board. One of the people who was put on that was actually Jim Matthews.
Yes.
He actually does live in Ithaca, New York.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, so although he works in Washington, he is actually a New York State resident, so that does give us some representation.
Yeah, they laid out very specifically 2 Amtrak members, 2
Yes.
Post Railroad members, so you had to fit into
Right.
the various boxes to do that, and I did see Jim get.
Yes, Jim was nominated to that board.
Well, appointed, even more appointed.
Yes, yes, so that was very good, so, okay, thank you very much, they are closing our.